Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers are in Philly tonight. Will Anthony Davis step up against Joel Embiid? That's the story we'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everyone for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. Always free, never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can hang out with upwards of 22,000 subscribers to the channel. Do want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. I wonder, Andy, how many people have either Anthony Davis or Joel Embiid in their Prize Picks selections for today, because that is the marquee matchup in the NBA, and it is always interesting to me how people look at AD going into a game like this one.
Well, particularly too, when you're looking at AD on the heels of the win in Cleveland, where he was spectacular, particularly in the second half. He was dominant on both ends of the game. He was the best player on the floor, I think, overall. And that was on the heels of a disappointing showing against Dallas, where he took one shot in the fourth quarter, did not score in the second half. There was a lot of talk afterwards about needing to get Anthony Davis involved more. James Worthy and Robert Horry on the Spectrum Sportsnet postgame show, the television partner of the Lakers, they were talking about the need for Anthony Davis to demand the ball, for Darvin Ham to demand other guys on the team get him the ball.
Yep.
And, AD downplayed that after the Cleveland win as far as like a really persistent talking point. But at the same time, though, you could see the way those guys were playing, the players around Anthony Davis, there was a big emphasis on looking in his direction. I thought LeBron summed this up pretty well. He sets about 95% of the screens for all the screen and roll action that they do. So by definition, he should be involved in just about everything. And AD is a hell of a roll man. So he should be, for the most part, a pretty active, pretty easy target to find. It's always going to be interesting, though, just the idea of how does AD play on the heels of a great game?
Yep.
Because it's very clear Laker fans do not expect him to carry the momentum 2 games in a row. They just don't. It's not that they don't think he's capable of it. They just don't think he will.
There's just the problem, because a lot of people pointed this out. Like we noted in our headline, in our cold open, in the headline on the podcast, on the audio side and all that, it was an off night for LeBron. Anthony Davis and the supporting cast in Cleveland stepped up on an off night for LeBron. LeBron, I believe, was 8 of 23 from the floor. He was 1 of 9 from 3-point range. And he had some really bad turnovers. He had that really stupid late fourth quarter chin up technical where he didn't even argue. He was like, oh, that was on me. Sorry. And then they all went and visited his museum. The guy has a museum, Andy. Like he should know better. Once they build museums for you, you shouldn't get the chin up technical for the fourth quarter.
You have a responsibility to the city and the children watching you.
Exactly. Put that in the museum.
I learned it from watching you, Dad.
Parents who do chin-ups have children who do chin-ups. He had 22 points. He had 6 rebounds, I think 4 assists, or something like that. The 22, I think I'm right about. And 8 of 23 from the floor and all that. What people pointed out was the off night for LeBron still has some positive contributions. The issue with Anthony Davis isn't that he has off nights. It's that the off nights have such a low floor that it's jarring, I think, for a player who on most other nights puts up really big, almost MVP level numbers. And so I think that's where the skepticism comes from. It's just, if it was just he had off nights sometimes, like LeBron had on Saturday, he wouldn't get the same level of scrutiny. It's that the floor is so low. And so when you go in now to face Joel Embiid, who is, in any other normal universe would be the gold standard of centers in the NBA, except Nikola Jokic exists. So, is he the silver standard? But he's an MVP. And
he's the reigning MVP. He's
right.
currently averaging 32 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks, gets to the line almost 12 times per game, and putting him in at 88%, which should be noted. Anthony Davis numbers at the line. It's been kind of quiet. AD has been awesome at the line this year.
So, if you're a casual and you're just not familiar with it, those numbers Andy just listed for Embiid are very good. Those are strong, strong numbers. He is auditioning every time, despite the fact that, in his last 2 seasons, he only played 1 game per season in the last 2 years against Philly. AD's been over 30 points in both of those games, double-digit rebounds and all that kind of stuff. Played very well against the Sixers. And that includes, I know last year at least, was, he really dominated in that matchup. But you're right. He's not going to get the benefit of the doubt until the floor on his bad games gets higher.
It's worth noting in terms of talking about the floor because, on one hand, Anthony Davis is considered a superstar in the NBA. He is the guy that the Lakers are looking to truly take the torch from LeBron in ways that don't feel questionable at all. So the asks of players like that are always big. The asks of your superstars, your franchise faces, are always very high, particularly if you are a Laker. That's the reason you would even be in this conversation in the first place. That being said and acknowledged, the asks on AD, even by superstar standards, are really high because he is asked to do, particularly right now while the Lakers are in this period. Cam Reddish is listed as questionable heading into this game tonight, but we know we will not have Rui. We know we won't have Jared Vanderbilt. We know we won't have Gabe Vincent. So that is a lot of both, forward size and point of attack defense, which puts a lot on Anthony Davis as the back line of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot on his plate in that role anyway. He is expected to do quite literally everything on defense while also putting up, say, 25 points a night and, the occasional 30 to 40 point night. So there are maybe a handful of stars in the league that you can look at and say they have as many responsibilities as Anthony Davis. I'm not trying to be, sycophant for the dude. I just think
but it's when you combine offense and defense. So a lot of stars are expected to carry a team offensively. Few are expected to carry a team defensively the way that AD does and still score 28 a night on the other side.
But, the flip side is, again, these are the responsibilities. The Sixers are 9-4 since the James Harden trade. They're 3-4 in their last 7, but the losses have come against Indiana, Boston, Cleveland in overtime, and Minnesota. So all of them against teams 500 or above. In the case of Boston, some would say the best team in the NBA right now. They're coming off a big road win in Oklahoma City. They are playing really well. And if AD can battle to, say, just a draw with Joel Embiid, you walk out of this game feeling like they both had great games, they both had terrible games, but AD had a role in Joel Embiid being below his averages, even if it sucked a lot out of AD in the process. You could live with that. You could live with that. And then if he happens to outplay Joel Embiid, that's going to be something that Laker fans are going to take notice of because until that starts happening on a regular basis, this conversation with AD is just going to stay circular. It's never going to end.
There's a little more to it, and I want to stick on this for a second, and then we'll get to Max Christie. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into this that's both game related and then 30,000 foot big picture related. So we'll get to all of it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Prize Picks, the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you can just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. Watch the winning roll in up to 25 times your money. And with basketball season in full swing, you can pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, created specifically for projections that include 2 or more players from different sports leagues. For example, LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo for 3-pointers made and receptions, stuff like that. Keep it fun, keep it weird, keep it creative. And with Prize Picks' reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured for NFL games, NBA games. If you have a player who exits the game in the first half, doesn't return in the second, that player gets rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA, all lowercase, and use the code LockedOnNBA, again, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Quick reminder that you can join us on Subtext. We are launching a subtext channel, and you go find us at subtext.com/LockedOnLakers. Free 14-day trial. Good way to keep up with us. You ask us questions directly. It all happens via text, and we can answer you. And we'll do mailbags and good way to have commentary on rumors as they pop up and all that stuff. Just another way to continue to engage with the show and to engage with us. And so again, it's join subtext.com/LockedOnLakers. I feel like just for me, the AD thing, it's like it will continue to go on until you no longer have games where you don't feel like AD is there. Like, what I'm saying? Like LeBron, even on Saturday, I knew he was there. It's like, the impact isn't always positive, but like he's making an imprint. Like LeBron very rarely doesn't make an imprint on a game. And I think that is what it is a lot of times with AD. It's like you just don't see that he's there. And I think that's why after the Dallas game, some of the comment, it was less brutal on AD than in the Denver game at the beginning of the year, the first game of the season, and I forget what's the other game that we had this conversation, or games in the past, because he was still on the glass and he was you felt him defensively a little bit more. It was really like, why isn't he involved more in the offense? Let's ask Darvin Ham this question too, not just Anthony Davis. It was you felt like he was there, you wanted more from him, but there are just too many games where you don't feel that he's there. You don't know that he's there. And a player as good as Anthony Davis can play, Kobe never played a game where you didn't know he was there. Like, even when he was angry and not shooting the ball, like on purpose, prove a point, like you knew he was there, and that's what I think the standard is, I think, for AD. So if he goes out and Joel Embiid has a few more points, or he can't limit, all those scenarios you were talking about before, I think are absolutely in play. The biggest thing is I think fans just want to know he was there.
Yeah, I mean,
it'll either be good or bad. I mean, preferably good, but like, you just can't disappear. He disappears too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you brought up LeBron always knowing he's there, Kobe always knowing he's there. Like, to some degree, I think there is a force of personality thing going on. But also, too, in fairness to Anthony Davis, it's positional. Like, those guys always have the ball in their hands. Like, when you think about a lot of players around the league that you always feel like they're there, you always notice their presence. Generally speaking, they are the ones running the offense. Mm-hmm. And, Kobe was for all intents and purposes, the Lakers point guard during the post-Shaq years.
Sure.
Derek Fisher was essentially a defense. He was
no disrespect to Smush Parker, but
no, I mean, Derek Fisher was essentially a 3-and-D shooting guard. He would run some sets now and then, but Lamar Odom ran the offense more than Fisher,
you are
much less
100%
Kobe. Correct. And Steph Curry, you always feel that he's there in part because he does insane things on the court, but also he always has the ball. You always feel James Harden. You always feel Giannis, Dame Lillard down the line. Like that is without being an AD apologist.
No,
that is.
I think, but I'm taking that into account. Like even with that caveat, there are still, it's the same. We had this conversation. We had these conversations with Powell.
For sure.
Again, with the caveat that he doesn't always have the ball in his hands. And that's why the Dallas game, it's like, why doesn't he have the ball?
Here's what I think fans would actually be more reassured about if they felt more often that AD is mad if he did not get the ball enough. Like, let me tell you something. When Shaq didn't get the ball enough, that became front page news, like in the real estate section. Like everybody heard when Shaq was mad that he did not get enough touches. There are I am willing to believe that Anthony Davis is not happy if he doesn't get enough touches, but you never hear him say, "What the F, man? Give me the ball."
You want, and it sounds weird to say this, you want just a tiny bit more diva. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
you go back to Philadelphia, the Eagles 4 or 5 weeks ago, AJ Brown has like no targets or something like that. And divas, like that's what wide receivers do. He makes a stink about it. And for the next 3 weeks, he averages like 130 yards a week and 5 touchdowns.
Bills do this every other week with Stephon Diggs.
Yes. It's like these guys make noise when they're unhappy. And you're right. I think it's a great point. Make some noise like a wide receiver, be more like Shaq, take a bat to a Gatorade cooler, to use baseball terminology. I think that's a really good point. So we'll see what happens. I love watching these matchups of AD with marquee centers. They're generally very entertaining, and the ones with Embiid have been particularly so.
Plus, there aren't that many.
I know. Let's talk about Max Christie, and we'll carry this into the next segment as well, because to say the least, Andy, and rightly, based on his performance Saturday, the YouTube page was a very friendly place for Max Christie. The Max Christie stands were out strong on Sunday because he played a great game, easily his most comfortable minutes in this season, and particularly was impactful defensively, whether on Darius Garland or down the stretch on Donovan Mitchell. Like, you want to talk about feeling a guy's presence. Max Christie, you knew he was there and did as good of a job defensively, really, as you can against players that good.
Yeah, obviously, Christie, his role in this game, possibly no Cam Reddish, definitely none of the other point of attack defenders we talked about. It's going to be really important. Tyrese Maxey, I imagine, is spending a lot of time on, and that is obviously a very, very
that is a dude who is balling out.
Yeah, he seems to enjoy life in the Hardenless era.
Yeah, no, the Sixers saw him playing in the preseason, early in the season, and what he was doing, and there was a 0% chance that James Harden would ever suit up for that team again.
Yeah, also to let everyone know, tonight's game against the 76ers begins at 4 p.m. Pacific time. They are the latest team, as we just mentioned, freed from the James Harden experience and seemingly loving it. You can catch every basket of the Lakers hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app just by searching Lakers. So yeah, we can talk about Max Christie, this assignment, and just his role on the team right now, but maybe even moving forward. So get into that coming up next. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel, and you can relish in this NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. So in other words, just bet $5, pick a team that wins, pays out, you get $150 back in bonus bets. You can use those bonus bets on spreads, on player props, over-unders, futures, all sorts of fun stuff. The app is really easy to use, and all those options right there at your fingertips. But of course, there are NBA props as well. As of this recording, LeBron and AD both 75-1 to win MVP. Anthony Davis 5.5-1 to win Defensive Player of the Year, continually on the rise, just behind three-time winner and recently choked Rudy Gobert, who is at 5-1. LeBron 320-1, respectfully, to arguably the greatest player of all time. Even at those odds, you are lighting money on fire with that bet. Darvin Ham 48-1 for Coach of the Year. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and enjoy the NFL season. Enjoy sports with an offer you don't want to miss. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL.
So, what's fascinating about Christie is, obviously you talk about the matchup tonight against Tyrese Maxey. Like, he's going to have a lot on his plate. He's, assuming Reddish is out, and even if Reddish plays, and you think Christie will get a little bit of these assignments and has earned himself a little playing time, particularly with the guys that are out. Like, it's just might need to put him in there anyway. But to say that the Lakers public as a whole was excited and was using Saturday's game as the starting point for, okay, Max Christie has arrived and it is time for him to be a regular part of this rotation. I mean, those are the people who were commenting on Sunday. Those are the people who were on Twitter on Sunday. And I understand why.
Look, we had this conversation all in the offseason heading into the year. I've been very, very bullish on Max Christie heading into the year. I was, at least, frankly, quite surprised that he was not in the rotation. Obviously, Darvin really entered the year wanting to see what was there for Cam Reddish. And to Reddish's credit, he took the opportunity and ran with it. And before this groin injury, was looking like a really critical part of the Lakers defense. And, his shooting was holding up better than expected. His ability to get out on the break and just his overall disruption and energy and athleticism was really important. But I'm not going to lie and say that there wasn't a part of me that still didn't want to see Max Christie, because I think there is a lot of potential in him. And all I heard during the offseason from people around the team, reports you read, whatever, is they had earmarked a role in the rotation for him. And, the night that he had against Cleveland, first against Darius Garland in the first half before Garland left with an injury, then as the primary guy, at least starting out on Mitchell, it was a really, really good defensive showing. But I also thought that it was building off what he did against Dallas. And Kyrie and Luka, obviously, those are two really difficult guys to keep track of. And for however much time he spent on either one, I don't remember off the top of my head. You look back at that game, Kyrie had 28, and that's obviously not shutting him down, but that's also basically a bucket-ish above his averages. Like, you're not freaking out about the idea of Kyrie Irving getting 28.
Also, and Kyrie is also, not to completely interrupt you, but Kyrie to defend Christie is unguardable. Like,
yes.
You can play. There may not be anybody in the league that's better at taking good defense against him and still getting a clean look than Kyrie. Like, I'm not sure who's better at that in the entire league. So, you get a little bit of leeway here.
Right. And then Luka had 30 points, but it was 10 of 26 from the field, 3 of 12 from behind the arc. He had 8 free throw attempts, which is, again, his averages. Like, looking at things realistically, you'll take it. Like, it may not be ideal, but Again, I don't remember all the individual possessions off the top of my head, but none of that is indicative of Max Christie getting used. Like, it's felt to me like, and maybe this is sort of like a pattern with Cam Reddish as well. Like, the more Christie has been on the floor to be comfortable, and like Reddish, knowing that there's nobody really over his shoulder to take his minutes so he can play a little bit more relaxed with a little more freedom, the more we're seeing of him over these last few games where Reddish has been unavailable, and now you add, Rui on top of it, I think he looks better with each game.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any question that all players play better when they don't feel like when they feel like they are
role players in particular. Role players.
Yes, thank you. When they absolutely when they know they're going to get the minutes, when they know that the margin for error is a little bit larger. I think ironically it allows them to play in a way that helps them make fewer errors, just because you're going to be out on the court. And Christie has essentially had big minutes in 3 straight games. He played 24 and a half against Utah. That was the game where Reddish was injured.
Yes.
And then, so I wasn't expecting it, the minutes in that game, but ended up playing over 24 and started the second half. He started against Dallas, and he started against Cleveland. I think, his impact plus minus a really imperfect measurement. And so I'm not leaning in on that, but the Lakers were so bad through, particularly defensively, through the first part of that game, that it's hard to say what exactly was going on. I'm not blaming it, but Christie certainly wasn't at the source of their problems. What I think really will separate him and allows him to be somebody that you can play is what he did offensively, is the way he was a reliable outlet for the corner 3, for confidently moving the ball, all that kind of stuff, because the defense ought to be there on most nights. Pretty good defensive player. The 2 things I would say, and I'm curious really more about your opinion on the second one, because this is just my thought with all players, not just Christie, is there's 2 dangers. First, kind of getting blinded because you want him to be so good and you believe in the potential, that you focus on the good stuff, kind of ignore the lesser results or the lesser impacts, because we all are excited about Christie. I mean, we're a long way away from Max Christie has arrived, I think. The second part, though, that I think is the more interesting question is, let's say you do believe that he either has earned the spot in a rotation or will continue to if you give him 15, 20 minutes a game. Whose spot does he take when you have enough healthy players? Because if Max Christie is going to play 15 to 20 minutes a game, somebody else isn't. And if Reddish is going to play, and it seems like he will when he's back, who doesn't? That to me is a really interesting question.
I think one way that you could approach this would be choosing between Jackson Hayes and Christian Wood, because for the most part, I don't think it has been all that fluid playing both of those guys with obviously Anthony Davis.
Yep.
And look, we're coming off a game where Christian Wood had 13 points in the first half, and I thought he was really important in just keeping the offense going when the Lakers were having a difficult time getting stops and just keeping pace with what Cleveland was doing. And Jackson Hayes was terrific against Cleveland. But I feel like for the most part, Darvin is going to need to choose between one or the other, in particular because I don't think the minutes with Wood and Hayes, no AD, have been particularly good at all. Mm-hmm. Like when it's the 2 of them and Anthony Davis is getting a break, if that's the way you're looking to go big, I have not, for the most part, liked how that's looked at all.
Okay, so that could buy you a few.
It's not going to be easy, but look, if
Rui is back theoretically in a week, end of the trip, you know,
hopefully.
Vanderbilt, let's say somewhere, at the end of the road trip or somewhere around there. Reddish is questionable for today's game. So they obviously don't see that yet as a long-term injury. The guy, I look at this like, whose skill set does he most replicate? If he shoots like he did against Cleveland and he moves the ball well enough, the answers to me are Prince and Vincent.
I had not thought about Taurean Prince, but that is a possibility.
Particularly while Prince isn't playing particularly shooting the ball.
I think the last couple games he's been better, but he's better.
His primary job is to shoot, and he's not shooting.
Look, if you could, Taurean Prince in a perfect world isn't playing 30, 32 minutes anyway. Correct. So a few of those, that's a good call with Prince. A few of those minutes could go to Christie.
And a lot. I mean, because again, if you're going to play Rui and you're going to play Cam, someone's not going to play. And that, whether that's Prince, whether that's Vincent when he's available, whether that's fewer minutes for Cam Reddish, maybe it's you run out of space for Jackson Hayes, whatever. You're still because Reddish and now Christie both you're talking about two guys who may or may not have been considered. All I'm saying is I could see.
Let me throw out one more idea, just because it is a big picture global goal for this team. And obviously, I'm not talking an apples to apples skill set match, but just goals, #goals, few minutes off LeBron. If you can put Christie out there for a few minutes a game just to hit outside shots, to take some tough defensive assignments, to rebound, which Christie's very good at. That was one of the reasons why I thought he would get some of those minutes from Cam Reddish, just because Christie does a very good job on the glass, and this team has often been terrible at it. But, if you can shave a few minutes off LeBron with Christie without hurting anything, there could be a possibility as well.
I'm not sure how much that impacts what I'm thinking about, but you're right. I mean, that would be a wonderful upshot of this. But I wonder if we could, if Christie takes the next 3 or 4 games and puts himself in a space where it's very hard to take him out of the lineup, I could see a healthy Lakers team suddenly not having space for either Prince or Vincent, or potentially on some nights, kind of both. Just because, the ball handling, we can quit and talk about this throughout the week, but the ball handling, they got enough ball handling. Reeves got the ball in his hands for most fourth quarter. D'Lo's got it. Obviously, you have LeBron. They don't have to have Vincent's point guard skills, and Christie is probably a more versatile defender if he really, when he's playing as well as he did against Cleveland, than both Prince and Vincent, both of them. That was my big question.
You're looking at a comparison between Christie and Prince. Max Christie is, if nothing else, possibly part of this team's future long term. Taurean Prince, 50-50 at best, would be around next season. I mean, Taurean Prince wants to play well enough that the Lakers, frankly, can't afford him.
Correct.
But either way, if you're looking to invest for the now and for the future in a perfect world, if possible, you're going to be looking more at Max Christie.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to hang out, see the show, talk to some other great Lakers fans, have these great conversations. A reminder, Lakers playing tonight, 4 p.m. Pacific in Philadelphia. You can catch every minute of the hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Lakers. We will be back, obviously, after the game, talk about it, AD versus Embiid and everything else that we get. Lakers with a chance. If they take this game, you want to talk about turning a potential road trip into a gold mine. They've won 7 of 9. This one is there. It'll take a great game. We'll see if they can do 2 in a row in that regard on the road. And we'll talk to everybody on Tuesday.